A quick reminder to check my video description to join our Discord discussions. It's the morning of the Chunin Exams. Everyone's lined up in the building and just waiting for those doors to open. Well, actually, Choji's woke up for the day and got prepared, but he's frozen at his front door. His father Choza invites him to sit to discuss a few things. Kurenai is waiting out of sight outside. She doesn't want her presence to add pressure to Choji. However, if he doesn't participate, then neither do his team partners. For the sake of Sakura and Shino, he needs to find his courage. Choza tells Choji that the Akimichi clan are a family of strong, loyal, and loving men and women. He emphasizes that Choji's fear of loss or reliving what he's already gone through is a sign of how gentle he is. And there's no shame in being gentle. But if Choji doesn't step up, his teammates could suffer. Instead of a stranger, it could be someone he loves dearly. It's a hard truth to learn, but the protector, the bruiser, the muscle in Ino Shikacho has always been the Akimichi. He might not have the team he wants, but he still has teammates and friends all the same that need his strength, his loyalty, and his love. Choza tells him that it's not expected to all of a sudden feel better. But if he can't take that first step forward, then he'll never take the rest of the steps. Sometimes everyone has to face their worst fears to push through to better times. And there may be a next time that he faces loss again, but he has friends surrounding him that will rise to protect him when he needs it too. That's what the leaf is all about. Choji doesn't have to protect everyone, because everyone protects each other. He asks Choji if he can face the Chunin exams, and Choji meekly nods. He tells Choji that even the Chunin exams can be a brutal experience, but if Choji can rise to the challenge, his very courage will inspire his team. Choza reminds his son that medical ninjutsu isn't necessary if no one's harmed. Strive to be the best protector, the greatest guardian. Swallowing hard, Choji gets to his feet and steps out the front door. Meanwhile, Ino has an odd anxiety as butterflies fill her stomach. As she goes over her various ninja tools and scrolls, her mouth becomes dry, and she feels her heartbeat hasten. Nauseated, she opens her bedroom window and sees Kiba and Mike Guy waiting outside. She calls out to them to pick up Rock Lee first. She's not really ready yet. Mike Guy tells her Rock Lee's doctor has said he shouldn't compete, so he's going to try and get them in as a two-man team. Shivering, her anxiety worsens. It's a sunny, warm day, but she's getting the chills. Trying to keep her voice steady, she tells Guy that there's no way Lee would let some petty exhaustion hold him back. Guy agrees with her, but ultimately it's not their decision sometimes. Panicking a little bit that she's run out of time, Ino asks them to wait just a little longer. Kiba groans that they just don't have that much time left. There's a closing time for the exams start. Forcing her concerns into a metaphorical ball, Ino collects her things and walks outside, keeping the facade that all is well. Guy assures them they will stop by the hospital just in case, but interrupting their walk is Rock Lee himself. He looks like Ino feels sick. Guy asks him if he snuck out the window or something, and Lee says it doesn't matter. There is nothing that'll stop him from entering these exams. Guy looks him over in quiet contemplation. Opening the gates for the first time generally carries an inordinate amount of exhaustion along with it that doesn't pass for several days. However, Kiba is more fired up than ever, and Ino seems... Guy turns to the whole team and tells them it's their decision. If all three want to enter, he won't stop them. Kiba's already chomping at the bit, and Rock Lee tells him yes no matter what. In a very slight hesitation that only Guy catches, Ino also says yes. The pause was so short, Guy was sure her fellow Genin did not notice. But he knows there's something off about her demeanor today. She's usually exasperated by their antics, but as Kiba makes exaggerated comments to pump himself up, she doesn't protest at all. And then there's Naruto. He tried waking up extra early to catch his dad before work, but he must have been at the Hokage building all night. So Naruto rushes to the office to speak with his dad before the Chunin exams begin. Never would he admit to Asuma that he's come to rely so heavily on the Flying Raijin, but his dad will surely give him another kunai if he asks. He'd give the explanation of where his went later, sure that his dad would let him leave because he's short on time. As he gets to the building, he notices 2 temporary structures have been built on either side of the walkway leading to the Hokage's building. One bears the sigil of wind, the other of lightning. When Naruto reaches the doors, he notes that there are 2 Anbu standing in front. They both step in his way when he tries to enter. He tells them it's him, Naruto. You know, the Hokage's son? They tell him that not even the Hokage's son gets in without an appointment today. He begs them at this point to let him in. It'll just be a few moments. Or you know what? He knows how to climb walls now. Maybe they should just let him pass before he makes a scene. They repeat that he's not getting in. He wonders aloud how his dad would feel learning that his trusted Anbu are barring his only son. At this point, the Anbu just ignore him. If only he was any good at the clone jutsu so he could at least fluster them as he tried to get past. He tells them that he could use the flying Raijin to get to his dad's kunai. One of the Anbu shakes slightly, and the other one encourages him to do just that and see what happens. Grumbling, Naruto turns to leave only to hear the shaking Anbu laugh a little bit, unable to hold it in. Naruto turns back to them and tells them he'll remember their masks. They're not getting away with this. Both Anbu shake their heads at him, amused, and he stomps away in annoyance. We have to remember that the Anbu are anonymous. They all know who Naruto is, but he has no idea who any of them are. I mean, he probably knows who they are when they're off duty, but with the masks, he couldn't even begin to guess. So they're not making fun of him as much as they already know what kind of bedlam he likes to cause, and the idea of interrupting a 3-way Kage meeting is absurd. Team Kakashi, minus the Kakashi, are on their way together to the registration hall. They're walking in silence and minding their own business when Neji holds up a hand to the other 2 and nods at the substantial sand on their stone path. Glancing into the bushes on their right, Neji sees a red-haired boy with a great gourd on his back. That's right, Gaara is here. Beside him, much better hidden, is Kankuro. As Neji has spotted them with his keen eyes, both openly walk out of the bushes and onto the path. Kankuro notes that he was just wanting to size up some leaf shinobi before they got in there. He compliments Neji for spotting them so easily. Neji frowns at the sand and tells them he saw it from a mile away, including their third partner sitting on the rooftop overhead. Kankuro notes that Neji's perception is kind of creepy and decides to shift focus to the other 2. He tells them it's obvious who are the sheep of the team and who is the wolf. Sasuke just stares at him, wondering why the first thing these sand ninja want to do is insult them. In a gust of wind, the third, Temari, lands on Gaara's other side. She notes how strange it is that someone so boring and unremarkable as Shikamaru is even with the other 2. Shikamaru looks around, wondering why anyone's even talking to him. Sasuke notes that Gaara is clearly the wolf of these other 2 sheep, and when he looks at a sheep, all he sees is an easy meal. Kankuro challenges him to put his money where his mouth is, but Sasuke laughs at the challenge and nods for his team to continue along with him. Ignoring Kankuro and Temari, Sasuke and Neji both can't help but maintain eye contact with Gaara as they walk by. He's the shortest one of the 3, but he felt so much bigger. Kankuro continues to call challenges to them as they walk away, but his words are just that, words. Going to their meeting spot, they wait uncomfortably long before Kakashi arrives. Sasuke reminds him that they don't have infinite time today. Why does he always do this? Kakashi agrees and apologizes profusely, but reminds them that they don't need their jonin to enter. Neji groans and then asks why Kakashi asked them to meet him. Kakashi apologizes again and tells them he didn't think time would be so against them. He tells them they'd better run to make it in time. Cursing at their careless teacher, all 3 sprint to the registration hall. As a result, all 4 teams arrive as the doors are about to close. Naruto, Kiba, Tenten, and Rock Lee trip over each other as they try to barge through the door. Meanwhile, Neji, Sasuke, Sakura, Shino, and Shikamaru walk over them to get in. Lagging a little bit behind, Choji, Hinata, and Ino enter last, and the doors slam shut. And so the Chunin exams have begun. I mentioned nostalgia in last week's episode. Well, I love how Phase 1 worked in canon, so it works the same here. Ibiki remains their proctor for this phase, and there are Chunin watchdogs on either side of the room to spot cheaters. The teams also aren't sitting together for obvious reasons, and we'll get to see some alternative interactions as a result. First, let's note some major differences in who's present and who isn't. The sound ninja are here. This is pretty important because Orochimaru obviously isn't in the same role that he is in canon. We'll explore later why they are a sound ninja here. But included with them are Yoroi, Misumi, and a third man who's as covered as the other two with no distinguishable features. These three are not masquerading as Leaf Shinobi. They are instead sporting their sound headbands. Again, this will be explained later, I'm just letting everyone know now. Kabuto is not present. Also, the Cloud team that are here consists of Omoi, Karui, and Atsui. Atsui is a little bit older, but he's only a Chunin during Shippuden, so I'll allow that he's a late bloomer. And of course, the same Sand team as in canon, Tamari, Konkuro, and Gaara. The rules for Phase 1 are identical to canon, but I'll reiterate just in case anyone needs a reminder. Genin are presented with 9 extraordinarily difficult questions that they shouldn't be able to solve. This encourages them to cheat, but the Chunin on either side of the room spot cheaters and put a strike for each time you're caught cheating. After being caught 5 times, you automatically fail the exam and are escorted out with your team. There are plants in the classroom that know all the answers, and it is up to the Genin to identify who they are and get their answers without leaving their seat. 45 minutes into the exam, they are presented with the option of answering the 10th question. However, if they agree to it and answer incorrectly, they won't only fail, but be barred from ever becoming a Chunin in the future. But if they forfeit, they can leave now and try again during a later exam. Ultimately, though, the exam itself is a lie. It doesn't matter how many questions you get right, as long as you have the courage to get to the 10th question. So you're encouraged to cheat, but technically if you don't cheat, you can still pass. That's the only flaw in the entirety of Phase 1, and I'd say calling it a flaw is a stretch. Because the Leaf Genin arrive literally last minute, the exam begins straight away, and they're jumbled up in the seating. Everyone immediately notes the difficulty of the questions. Naruto's so stunned by the questions that he forgets to write his name. He glances around the classroom, shocked that everyone is actually writing answers. Shikamaru picks up his sheet and studies the questions. Shrugging, he begins to answer them. If Neji has trouble, he can simply use his Byakugan. If Sasuke has trouble, well, it shouldn't be too bad. Remember, the Sharingan gives good reflexes in my rewrite, but it can't copy basic movements, only jutsu. But Sasuke's pretty smart, he shouldn't have too many issues. Omoi plays with a knife while he's answering his questions. Picking his teeth with the knife, he reflects the light from outside into the eyes of the Chunin watchdogs. Trying to act aloof, the Chunin struck by Omoi's redirected light cringe a little bit and blink rapidly to appear as inconspicuous as they can. Meanwhile, Omoi's wondering if this gives him any kind of advantage. It's almost something he did while bored, and less to take advantage to cheat. Karui is sitting a few rows behind him and spots what he's doing to the watchdogs. Feeling this strange sense of competition, Karui starts doing the exact same thing, and soon both forget about the test to see who can blind the most watchdogs. Atsui, on the other hand, remains level-headed enough to take advantage of the blinded Chunin and time his peeks to his neighbor. Because a whole one side of the classroom is being repeatedly blinded by 2 immature ninja, all the other Genin get to take advantage as well. Shino gets the answers easily with his bugs and communicates the information back to his teammates. And since they're now on the same team, Hinata isn't placed beside Naruto, so he doesn't even have the option to cheat off her. Instead, he sneaks a peek at Kagari of the Rain. He hopes that the other ninja's blindfold means he's actually blind. Shifting over as slowly as he can, Naruto wonders if he can fake fumble with his pencil and then peek when he reaches for it. It's so simple, it just might work. Meanwhile, Tenten's using her ceiling mirrors to reflect her answers to Naruto, but he couldn't be more oblivious. As Naruto attempts to make his move, Kagari turns his head straight at Naruto and crooks it before nodding at Naruto's blank paper. At this point, Naruto experiences a muted crisis that a blind man can answer written questions better than he can. Looking at his blank sheet, Naruto wonders if he could just make it into an origami figure for all the good staring at it is doing him. He thinks that maybe if he enters the wrong information on purpose but confidently, someone else will make the mistake of cheating off of him. Sakura, as in canon, answers all these questions correctly. It's definitely very challenging, but nothing she can't handle. Meanwhile, Ino leans over her paper as if she were falling asleep and discreetly uses her mind transfer on someone a few rows up. As she enters into his body, she hears a Chunin call someone out for being caught too many times. Well, this is her first attempt, so it wasn't her. She looks down at the man's sheet, disappointed that he only got 3 answers so far. A hand falls on the possessed man's shoulder, and Ino looks up at one of the Chunin watchdogs as he tells her she's been disqualified. Ino realizes the callout was for the very man she performed the mind transfer on. Having possessed so many animals recently, she almost forgets the small intricacies of controlling another human being's body, and when she stands, she knocks her chair back to clatter loudly. As nearby genin look up, she realizes she could slow down others, and starts making a fuss that she wasn't cheating. She even reaches down to her neighbor's exam sheet and rips it before several Chunin are suddenly restraining the man. Retreating from his body, Ino returns to herself as the man confusedly shouts questions about what they're doing to him. Writing down the answers that he had, she realizes that she can just possess several people and make several more problems. Every time, she gets a couple more answers and then returns to obviously cheating so that genin gets caught, and then she can make another ruckus. But the mind transfer jutsu on a person is far more draining than simple animals. After the third one, Ino feels a little dizzy, but she's also had a lot of fun causing commotions through others. Eventually, she fills her sheet and possesses the ninja beside Rock Lee to convey the answers to him as discreetly as she can. She repeats this for Kiba as well. Naruto, meanwhile, has basically given up entirely. Unless someone helps him out, he has no idea how he can steal a peek at anyone else's test. Instead, he slouches so his arm can hang under his desk and he can practice the Windblade Jutsu. He's going to die of anxiety if he just sits there in silence. At least this is a distraction until he notices something that can help him. Ibiki announces to the class that there's 10 minutes left. No one's looking at Naruto but his teammates. He's oblivious to Tenten's attempts to help, and Hinata can't without it being obvious. Ino and her team are just waiting for the end now, and she decides to mind transfer one more person just for fun. She gets into the mind of a girl who happens to be sitting next to Naruto, who's crumpled up into a ball at this point, mostly hidden beneath the desk. She sees his paper has a variety of doodles on it, and nothing else. As Ibiki announces the 5 minutes remaining, Naruto grits his teeth and accidentally exerts a great burst of chakra. The result launches wind into the floor before splashing out in every direction, lifting, mixing, and confusing the exam papers. In the chaos, Ino slides her victim's paper over to Naruto. He has no idea what's happening as she jumps into the air to try and catch the sheets, only to be tackled by more Chunin. Yet again, the Chunin have launched to work to make sure the sheets make it back to their rightful owners. Seeing that Naruto quote-unquote still has a paper, they assume he held onto it. Naruto doesn't know what happened, but nor does he care. He now has an exam that's fully answered. Back in her body, Ino wonders why she helped Naruto. She decides that it's better for a Leaf Shinobi to pass than any of these other nations. Ino sees Naruto furiously writing something on the sheet as Ibiki counts down the last 10 seconds. As the timer goes, Naruto lifts his hands into the air, giggling in his good fortune. Ibiki remarks that this is by far the most rambunctious group he has had in a very long time. In a scenario of stealth, he didn't think he'd see so much explosive ninjutsu creating such chaos. He notes that this is grounds for a rule change in future exams to prevent such a thing from happening again. Nonetheless, he offers compliments to those who were less focused on cheating, but more on disruption. Ibiki explains the rules to the 10th question, which forces more teams to give up early. Naruto's too happy about his situation to even consider giving up. Choji looks back at Shino, who nods at him, and Sakura, who flips him the thumbs up. They're still confident that he can perform, so he won't back down quite yet. Though the first part of the quiz was a breeze, Kiba is concerned for Rock Lee being able to retain focus for whatever comes next. If push comes to shove, he can cover for Lee's weakness on the field, but in the classroom there's little he can do. Just as in canon, several other teams back out and numbers dwindle. And finally, Ibiki congratulates the group that stayed with the glad news that they've passed the entire test. Again, just as in canon, Anko bursts through the window in a bombastic flourish that invites the remaining genin to follow her to phase 2 of the exams. As everyone shuffles out of the room and reunites with their groups, Ino catches up to Naruto first. She jabs him with an elbow and tells him that he owes her one. For what? He asks. Ino tells him that she passed him that test with all the answers. When Naruto says the answers didn't even matter in the end, Ino tells him that if that wasn't the trick to the exam, they both know he would have failed. Grumbling that he didn't need any help, Ino tells him that if he remembered these kinds of favors, he'd have more friends. She then runs back to her group. Meanwhile, back in the classroom, Ibiki's picking up the sheets and stops when he gets to a particular paper. He shakes his head and crumples it into a ball. All its questions were answered flawlessly. However, the name at the top was scritched out, and Naruto's name was written under it. And that's the end for today's episode. Obviously, a lot of changes without Hinata beside Naruto, or Sakura having an inner monologue about his struggles in the moment. However, he, albeit accidentally, made his own luck with that sudden blast of air. I also love the idea of disruption rather than just cheating in general. And that whole arc was inspired by Omoe with the knife. I was trying to figure out how he'd cheat, maybe by reflecting light to send Morse code or something like that, but it turned into a silly game of blinding the Chunin. I also like the concept that Karui is ultra competitive, and Omoe just gets caught up into it every single time. Just imagine him blinding a Chunin on a whim when another Chunin gets blinded by someone else, and he looks around to see Karui smiling smugly at him, and it just turns into this big stupid game. I don't want the notion of them being idiots to also convince anyone that they don't care about doing well. They're the only Cloud team competing, so they're representing their Raikage. They can't exactly take it easy with that kind of burden. Anyway, we'll be diving right into the Forest of Death next time, and it's going to be so much fun to introduce some of my new rules. Until then, the sky's the limit.